Hello. Welcome to the 15th part of the necromancer's evolutionary traits. A special thanks to my channel members for supporting me. And if you want to support, you can join my channel membership or Patreon for as low as $1. Thank you very much. Let's begin. At the beginning of this part, we see that Amy is working. Headmaid says, "Lady Amy, we've finished cleaning up the mansion." Amy says, "Thank you. It must have been hard, seeing how long it has been abandoned." She says, "Not at all. However, we thought it would not be appropriate for us to enter the study that the previous family head had used. Perhaps Lady Amy could have a look at it first." She gets up and says, "Yes, I'll check it now." She is standing in front of the study room. She thinks, "Father's studies. I remember being scolded a lot when I hid here to play hide and seek with my brother." She opens the door and says, "It feels like ages ago. Everything is ruined inside the room." She says, "Wow, what a mess." Well, there was no one here to look after it. She sees a picture. After that, we see at Welton Territory. Andreas is riding a train and says, "Aren't you being a bit indiscreet, Master Salem?" Salem is sitting in front of him and says, "What?" Andreas says, "For the continent's greatest black magician to turn up in a public place like this." Salem says, "You brat. I'm giving you an extracurricular lesson in person, and you're complaining? All sorts of people are after you because you're too weak." Salem says, "Anyway, let's get to it." Andreas says, "He didn't listen to a word I said." Salem says, "You know that the aura in your dantian and the mana in your heart are basically the same thing, right?" Andreas says, "Yes." Salem says, "So, in theory, you could convert both of them and put them to use. Of course, it's impossible without a dual core, though there's no need for one. But enough explaining. I, the great Salem, shall teach you the method I've devised to use conversion practically, called transference." 10 minutes later, both the technique and the activation are easy. Salem thinks, "I never thought it would be possible to convert the heart's mana into aura this quickly. What an extraordinary thing you've devised." Salem Edidia. Salem says, "Well, looks like you've got the hang of it. Keep practicing just like that." Andreas says, "Wait, please, just tell me one thing. Do you know anything about my father and the Cromwell house?" Salem says, "About that, huh?" Cain was Gramp Morn's apprentice. Salem says, "Like I said before, find out the details yourself. It's a pain in the ass to explain everything." Andreas says, "What do you mean?" Master Salem. He thinks, Cain Cromwell. He was a black mage? I never realized that he was one, neither back in the game nor since I arrived in this world. Good thing I'm on my way home. If I search the house, I might find something." He gets back home and Amy says, "What do you think? Lupin did a great job of tidying up this place, right?" Andreas says, "Didn't this used to be Father's study?" Amy says, "Yes, but it was in shambles, so I fitted it with a new set of furniture." Andreas says, "Thank you. This could be used as an office." Amy says, "But I made sure to leave all the important stuff in place." She shows him their family photo. She says, "It's our family photo from when we were children. How's that? It brings back memories, doesn't it?" Andreas thinks, "It's a strange feeling. I feel nostalgic, but at the same time, the feelings are like someone else's." Andreas touches the picture. The picture starts to glow. A room opens. He says, "What is this?" He thinks, "When I touched the photo frame, it triggered a magic circle, opening a hidden door. If it only activates when the two of us touch it, then that means what's inside could be Cain's inheritance. Of, more likely, his will. Let's try going inside first. If it's hidden like this, there has to be something amazing in there." Andreas says, "I'll check it out. You should wait outside." Amy says, "What? I can't let you go in there alone." Andreas says, "This magical device is too much for you. It's too dangerous." He says, "Go." She says, "Okay." She says, "Be careful, okay?" Andreas says, "Yeah, don't worry." He goes down there. He feels something and thinks, "A black mage item?" It's the same feeling I had with the sloth. He keeps walking. He sees a tree. He thinks, "There are so many rare fairy flowers here." System says, Codex Apocalypse, Chapter 0, The Purest Original Sin. Awaiting to bear fruit. Andreas is really surprised and thinks, Is that the main part of the codex? Why is something I've never even seen in the game in here? There is a scroll hanging by the tree. Andreas gets that and says, a letter was tied to the original sin tree. Did Cain leave it here? A lot of red energy appears. The letter disappears. Someone appears behind him. There is a seed in his hand. They put it in a flower pot, and it immediately starts to grow. Morn is really surprised and happy. Morn kills Andrea's mother. Andreas thinks, I see. So that's what happened. The Empire and the Black Mages are in cahoots with each other. And just like Salem said, the Emperor left Cain in the care of Morn. Cain studied black magic and sprouted the original sin. But once he achieved that, he was discarded because he was no longer useful to the Emperor. The death of his father and his mysterious illness, and the downfall of his family. Cain soon realized that the Emperor had arranged all of that. So he took revenge on the Emperor in his own way, by hiding the original sin in a place that only us siblings could enter. His father asks, did you get a good look at the memories your father left behind, Andreas Cromwell? Or should I call you Makoto Kaneshiro instead? Andreas brings out his sword and says, who are you? Andreas says, shame. I thought you'd figure it out right away, being a game addict and all. He gets a flashback where it says, thank you for playing our game. Does that ring a bell? Mr. Makoto Kaneshiro, I presume? Andreas thinks, this guy, he can't be. Andreas says, are you the dev who brought me here? He says, bingo. So, how's the world of deadly sins? It's a fantastic fantasy world, isn't it? Andreas asks, why did you bring me here? Dev says, nothing much. Really. I just wanted you to clear this game. Andreas says, clear the game. You say? Yeah. Simple, right? Dev says, surely you've seen how this world ends many times. As Luis, Lucia, and Diane, that is. But ultimately, they all ended in an apocalypse ending, didn't they? The world ended up being destroyed by the outburst of the original sin that swallowed up all the deadly sins and their owners. Andreas says, what are you talking about? Once you collect all the deadly sins and the original sin, and defeat the final boss, the end of the world should be averted. Dev says, I suppose that's as far as you got to see. But as long as original sin's consciousness exists, the world will eventually come to an end. And to stop this, you have to take complete control of it. Andreas asks, control the original sin? Dex says, yes, and only Cain's own flesh and blood can do that. System says, the immature original sin demands a contractor's blood. Offer your blood and sign the contract. Looks like the original sin has sensed you. Dev says, looks like the original sin has sensed you. You may be talentless scum, but only very few can enter this place before the original sin matures. And you are one of those few, Andreas. After 6 months, once is has grown conscious, the original sin will emerge outside of the ward and will seek out its own host. Andreas thinks, I was wondering why I was reincarnated into this trash character, so this is why. With Cain hiding the original sin, only Amy has access to it. He says, so what exactly do you want me to do? Dev says, simple. I want you to sign a contract with original sin and become its host, and then feed it the deadly sins and tame it. Andreas says, easy for you to say, if I fail. Won't they devour me, too? Dev says, it can't be helped, but this is the only way. If you succeed, both you and the world will survive. I apologize for bringing you here and asking you to do this, but I am counting on you. Dev says, my son, I believe in you. If it's you, I'm sure you can do it. And please look after Amy. Andreas says, this isn't one of those otherworldly reincarnation stories. And while I don't like the idea of being forced to work for free, just like he said, there's no other way. And if there's no other way, I have no choice but to face it. Just like what I've done all this time. System says, Codex Apocalypse, Chapter 0. The purest original sin has resided within the user's body. Codex Apocalypse, Chapter 0. The purest original sin has recognized the user as its master. Mana recovery increased by 144%. Mana density will increase over time. Mana elements will become closer to dark over time. Increases ability the more deadly sins are collected. Unlock more ability and features the more deadly sins are collected. He thinks, Cain Cromwell, father of the second half of my soul. You can leave Amy and the Cromwell family to me. Please rest your souls in peace. I will also avenge all the tragedies that befell you. I swear it. Morn says, have you found the original sin yet? Viscount Lamar Peloton says, we've been looking into Cain's activities before he died, but, Morn says, bloody useless. And you call yourself the head of intelligence? He must have entrusted it to one of his kin. Sooner or later, they're going to make a deal with me. He says, then, I shall investigate the Cromwell more closely. Well, right now it's just that one young Cromwell. There's no need to rush, so I'll give you a little more time. He says, I am grateful, Your Majesty. Someone appears behind him and says, for now, maintain the surveillance you've had. It would be bet 5 tur to start with the deadly sins first. Morn says, and what about the Zephyr cult? I'm sure they're keeping a deadly sin for their god summoning. He says, we've picked up some suspicious activity. We believe they will soon be gathering a large number of people for the Zephyr summoning ceremony. Good, maintain a close watch on them. The 15th part of the necromancer's evolutionary traits ends here. If you want to see more, please subscribe and like. And if you want to support me financially, you can join my channel membership or Patreon only for $1. Patreon and Discord links are in the description if you want to support me. And a special thanks to all my Patreons for supporting me. Thanks for watching.